Hello, and welcome to Stress-Free IEP, the show where we help families build their villages to raise their neurodivergent children with confidence and support. I'm your host, Frances Schefter, special education attorney, advocate, and fellow parent, walking this journey with you. Each week, we shine a light on the professionals, resources, and real-world strategies that can empower you to navigate the IEP process and beyond without stress. Whether you're tuning in live on Facebook or YouTube or listening later on your favorite podcast app, we're so glad you are here. Sorry. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in and meet today's amazing guest. Today's guest is Dotan Galron, who is a mission-driven entrepreneur and founder of WizTherapy. WizTherapy is a platform connecting neurodivergent individuals with the providers who best fit their needs. Before WizTherapy, he founded Drippler, a startup that was later acquired by Asurian, where he led product teams serving hundreds of millions worldwide. Now, Dotan is on a mission to make care more personalized, accessible, and effective for both clients and providers. Dotan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Frances. Thanks for having me.
So WizTherapy, what made you, obviously you're an entrepreneur, you've done this before, what made you come up with WizTherapy?
Well, if you ask my wife, she can't believe that we actually gone on that crazy ride that all over again. With the first one, everybody warns you about roller coasters and you don't know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And, roller coasters are real for startup founders. With the second one, you know exactly, or at least you have a somewhat a better idea. But here we are. So luckily, I have the most perfect wife and family to support me with these crazy rides. For me, it was the understanding, I think, post my previous experiences, that I wanted to do something based on these experiences, on the learnings I had, but with something more impactful. And I learned a lot throughout the ride of being part of startups and then starting another one on being a founder of a startup. But I had three key learnings. I guess it was post-COVID where you everybody stopped and kind of thought what's next. For me, it was kind of the same. I'm not that different. And I learned about myself that I really enjoy the satisfaction of helping others. And I thought it doesn't have to be around tech support. It can be something potentially more impactful. The second learning was just seeing the transition from helping just a few, family and friends around me, then thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions and hundreds of millions. So looking throughout the journey, what it means to help at a massive scale really got me to think this is what I want to do. And the third piece of learnings were just it was my passion for technology. I knew that from a very young age. I am a geek. I would identify as a geek from a very young age. I'm that one guy to solve all tech issues for family and friends. And I really wanted to take on the opportunity to leverage technology, be it hardware, software, both, to do impactful things at a massive scale. So with these three learnings, I kind of started the journey of discovery process and trying to figure out what are opportunities worth solving and where I am somewhat okay or well positioned to be the one to solve, or at least try. And talked with many founders, smart people in the trenches, those who are doing impact work, and just wanted to get some better sense or idea about what are the major opportunities and where can I be a good fit for. And one of them is an all-time friend of mine. His name is Ronnie Glazer. They live in the Bay Area. If I'm a geek, Ronnie, uber mega hacker, completely different level. And the moment I shared with Ronnie my perspective, it clicked right away. And he said, I'm not sure if you wanted to brainstorm or not, but you got yourself a co-founder. And I think it's serendipity, to to extreme. Like, this is where, happy accidents happen, and he's the perfect tech startup founder you want on your team, like, the co-founder. And we just started brainstorming ideas, and what about this, and we looked into medical devices and healthcare, like as a whole, digital healthcare, education, kids, many things in between. So like it was a really great discussion, and try to figure out what we should be the ones to try to solve. When his wife walked into the room, she's an educational therapist, her name is Mayan Glazer-Koren, and she literally stopped us. She said, you boys are talking about like starting a startup, what's going on? And we admittedly, kind of like scratching our heads, yes. So she said, you boys go play outside, you fix my own problems first. So you give me an hour and you can say no. And just like we were, sure, yeah, let's do it. Right. And we sat with Mayan. And for me, it was the very first glimpse into the world of neurodiversity and what it means to be a provider for families. So she shared with us her perspective, and just like, to get a good sense about like, what are the pain points, what are the challenges, the daily struggles. And then we asked Mayan, can you connect us with more? And we then talked with hundreds, allied professionals, colleagues, neuropsychologists, psychiatrists, SLPs, OTs, LMFTs, educational therapists, obviously, and ADHD coaches, and executive function coaches, and school principals, and teachers, and you get the idea.
Yep.
And then we asked them, can you connect us also with families to get their perspective? And once we heard, I wouldn't say it's enough, like it's never enough, like we always want to hear more. But once we got to the point where we heard similar stories, and being geeky engineers kind of like naturally drives you to identify patterns. So once we got to that point where we felt like, all right, these are like similar stories, and these are like the three major patterns we heard, this is where we decided, all right, it's time to like really think about like the company, and what's the business opportunity, and what are we building, what's our mission. And in a nutshell, we heard three major stories, but if you try to kind of like find the commonalities, or like what's the connective tissue for all of this, what's the common thread, it was that the gap we felt is real, and there was no one, at least on the technology side. I know that like on the clinical side, there would many that would claim to be taking a very holistic approach and try to cover all aspects and everything. But on the technology side, we couldn't find even one solution or company that would say, we put the neurodivergent individual in the center, and then we try to build the most effective village around them, the support network, the team. And it felt to us that that's a mission worth trying, and like we potentially should be the ones to try to solve for this. And that's kind of like the very beginning of WizTherapy. So this is kind of like what brought us here, and just inspired by providers and families alike, we felt like we should do something about it.
And so it makes, like, I know you said you're connecting the neurodivergent individuals and families with the right providers. Like, how does it do that, and how is that unique from like going to your health insurance and searching?
It's a great question. So first, I would say that in many cases, these aren't services covered by insurance, unfortunately. That's reality right now. We're trying to push that needle and like make a change at a massive scale. It's going to take time. We all know it. But what we learned, and I guess that will be a segue to kind of like explain what we heard from providers and families. So we learned that connecting is a hard point in time. Like, that's a crucial part where we can potentially be helpful. So how can you find that right expert for the job, and for your precious one or for yourself? It's really hard. It's a point where it's hard to navigate. You are kind of like sometimes feel lost. there's, it's a moment of anxiety and frustration for many. You don't even know the language, like you don't speak the jargon, like you don't know what's the difference between this and that. How do you even make a choice there with no expertise, knowledge, experience in the field? And so you try to educate yourself. There's endless Google research. Back then when we started off, AI was kind of like, and it's very early on days. And now I guess like on top of endless Google research, there's also your favorite AI, so ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and others. It's hard, and it usually leads to some other rabbit holes. One of them is directories. You sift through hundreds or maybe thousands. So quite like you mentioned, you go to your insurance company directory and try to find help. It's hard, and it takes time and effort and energy, and we felt like we should do something different that would potentially reduce these anxieties and frustrations. So what we learned from after talking with many founders in adjacent industries and trying different mock-ups and designs, and would that work? No. All right, what about this one? And so we tried many different things and had lots of iterations until we landed on something that felt a bit better. And it was, let's just ask a few questions. And it's not going to be the full-blown intake with medical history, but it's also not just phone number and email. Can you share with us a bit of, context? Give us some color to this picture. What's going on? What are your concerns? Has there been any diagnosis? What's the primary language? What's the age? Like, let's try to just get the basics. And then we try to match you with a potential provider for the, based on how you filled out the questionnaire. We try to match you with a potential provider that would take on a 20-minute free consultation with you to start that journey. And we felt that like in this field, this is kind of unique because we couldn't find like ones that would potentially do that matching instead of like making it, hard for you and you go through directories, like just a different.
I was going to say, as a parent, you sit there and go through the directory and you make phone calls and you can't get through to anybody, or you send emails and you can't get through to anybody. And it's like, now's when I have the time to connect with people, and I set apart an hour, but I can't connect with anyone. So where you come in is like, you make that connection. So I'm not wasting all that time calling people. You make that connection and I get a 20-minute phone call immediately.
It's not only the time. I think, when you start an endless Google research, I think what we learned was that it just increases the amount of anxieties and frustrations, because what happens is that you know more. And when you know more, you know that you know not enough. And there's like a lot more to learn. And, okay, so there's a whole new thing I need to learn now before I even, enable myself to get to that point where I make a choice. So, okay, so let's take that, let's start
and
that.
For me, I call it analysis paralysis.
Right.
I get so overwhelmed with so much out there, I can't do anything and I can't move forward. And I don't know if you parents out there have the same thing, but it's just like, I'm too overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to ignore it and pretend it's going to go away, which obviously we all know it doesn't, until things get worse. And then it's like, okay, now I have to make a decision. Now what? So you take that away.
Top it off, when we talk about neurodivergent kiddos, apples and trees are real. And, in many cases, it's kind of like it's not easy for parents as well. It's not easy for the very first moment, but it's also not easy throughout the journey. Sometimes, with scheduling and payments and note-taking documents, we'll get there, but it's not easy. Right. And what we learned is we should try to reduce anxieties and frustrations and potentially make it a delightful short moment where we just put you on track with a professional. And the difference there is that we try to short circuit this entire process of learning, and like the learning curve is crazy. And we just try to put you on a 20-minute free consultation with somebody that once they hear you, once they listen, they would, do so much better work than you would ever do to put you on track with the right person to help you out.
Right. If they can't help, they can at least say, okay, this is what you need to say, which I get as an attorney all the time. They call me as an education attorney and I'm like, nope, that's not my thing. But here are some names of people that can help you. And here are the questions you need to ask and who you need to look for.
Exactly. And that's actually what led us to understand that there's not enough of, this is a moment that may be adding some more anxieties and frustrations, right? You need to refer out. And then you jot down on pen paper maybe 5 names of people you know, and then family should go and figure that out. Phone calls, emails, websites, like whatever. We felt like we should do something about that and make it feel like it's not a dead end. So we built a referral system so it's easy for you to not only get referrals but also make referrals.
Right.
So in these cases,
right, because I think you said if you say, okay, I need to refer you to so-and-so, then you just actually click a button and it refers the client and then they connect.
Right. And that's based on your own circle of trust. So as a provider, you have people that you trust, you work with. You can easily now refer out to them. They can share their availability. So it just makes it easy. It makes it easy for the family to go ahead and book another 20-minute consultation with the other provider.
Right. That's all in one spot. So I know you said with our own referral circles, do you guys do any vetting of providers so that it's just not anybody can say, oh, I'm a provider, let me join?
Yes. And I would say, we made a choice. Our North Star, our mission is to build villages. And it's not about building the technicalities like I shared about like the connection part, like that is the first core pillar we launched. But the moment we launched that, provider said, all right, great, like you got us connected, now what? And we might have a journey for years now. And then we learned a lot about practice management and EHRs and EMRs and HIPAA and FERPA and COPA and like everything you need to know to streamline the journey. And it has nothing to do with the actual clinical work and clinical outcomes. It's just like how you make sure that admin work and business side is taken care of. And I think, we learned over time that we need to free up providers and families to focus on that. And, in our experience, anything we can do to build the features and make sure that we operate with that in mind would help with that North Star. So going back to your question about vetting, everything we do, including how we operate in the terms of like onboarding providers to the platform, should be aligned with our North Star. And that's why our platform is not a self-serve platform. When somebody wants to use, our features and kind of like have an EHR and enable the referral system and also the clinical side of things, it's important for us to understand that they're a good fit. It's important for them to understand that we are a good fit. It's trust, and it takes, both sides, and it goes both ways. It's when we meet with providers that we learn more about who they are, what they do, their accreditations and certifications and licenses and everything. We onboard literally every single one of our providers through a video call that we have, or sometimes in person if that is allowed, and that is even better. It's not an easy vetting mechanism because sometimes it's really hard. Coaches and tutors and some other professions are not as regulated as other professions. So sometimes regulation is great and it helps you out with the benchmarks and understanding. But they're on top of like trying to get all the information we can and do the whatever checks that we can and getting references from our providers, which is kind of like at the basics. The best way for us to grow is by word of mouth of existing providers bringing their trusted network. But on top of that, I would say that there's a clear footprint of a healthy relationship with and a journey with a client versus not. So we leverage technology to kind of like help us learn about successful journeys versus not, and when things may go sideways. Luckily, it hasn't happened so far, but I mean, I'm sure that with our scale, we potentially may make mistakes, and making mistakes is natural. I think it's
That's
hard.
how we learn. Yeah.
It's hard to avoid, but what we do is we try to minimize these. So we try to put, the right protocols in place and the right systems in place and the right approach in place to make sure that we minimize these occurrences. So yes, it's hard. We vet providers, but it's a never-ending long process.
Right, and I'm sure it's I know with Wiser of DC, which is a networking group I'm in, it's, we say, yeah, these are providers we vet to an extent. However, you're liable, you're responsible for vetting in your own, because there's only so much you can do as a corporation. Well, we're a nonprofit, an organization, but there's only so much you can do without, going in and being able to make sure. And it's not even necessarily is the person or the provider a good provider. It's just, are you a good fit? I say all the time, like, what? I know a lot of other education attorneys. We all have different styles.
Right.
And, some are a match for me, some are not, clients. Like they might prefer a different style. That's great. I'm okay with that. Like, and that's to learn that is that let's find the right one so that everybody's happy and successful.
Exactly right. And for us, if the family would reach out and say, we don't think it's going to work, or like it's not a good fit, or whatever the reason may be, we're always trying to do our best and find them the relevant provider that would be the best fit for them.
Right. And so, like, how does it work for families or even for providers? I guess they're two different things. Like, what do they do if they're like, oh, this sounds really interesting. I want to be a provider on the network, on WizTherapy. What do they do? What does this look like?
So for providers, they either go to our website, WizTherapy.com, and then there's a provider section where they can learn a bit about what we do for providers, and they can fill out that intake, which at the end, like, this is just like to get a good sense about who they are and what they do, and to schedule a consultation or like an interview meeting with us. And this would be kind of like the very first step. We don't charge providers. There's no cost for the membership or anything like that. Again, aligned with our North Star, we learned that whenever we talk with providers, it felt like we should keep it strictly professional. And so it should be very easy for providers, if our mission resonates and if they feel like they should be part of the community, we wanted it to be a no-brainer. So for that, we decided, all right, we would need to think about a different business model, something different than the usual, whatever monthly, annual fee, regardless of if you use our platform or not, if you got value or not. So on the provider's side, there's no fee at all. We actually also sweetened the deal on the processing fee side. So we partnered with Stripe to facilitate the payments, and we do a 2.9 fixed cost for them. Usually it's, I want to say the average, including all small different fees, add-ons, would be 3.5 to 4%.
Right.
So it should be a highly competitive and I hope a no-brainer deal for providers. And this is step one. If we we meet and like there's a good clear fit, then we can then invite them to the platform, and we have a provider community so they can tap into that and talk with relevant providers across the board, like everyone who's in the space of helping neurodivergent individuals. And it's all free. So I mean, it should be a no-brainer.
It is. I just haven't gotten there yet. I will. It's just, a lot going on.
And for, you asked about parents. So for providers, they can bring along their existing clients. So if they support parents already, we try to be very agnostic about, if you have received clients through the network, through our attempts, SEO, and I guess nowadays AI, that direct you with answers, but also some social media and small scale but ad campaigns that we run every now and then. So that would be directly from us, but there's also the network of providers, and they can now easily refer through the referral system. So that is to support providers. With families, when they go to our website, if they haven't gone, like if they are not starting being a client on WizTherapy through their existing providers, and they just are at the very beginning, looking for providers to support them, they can go to wiztherapy.com, click on Get Started. We ask that very short questionnaire to just get a good sense and try to match them, and that's the beginning.
Wow, nice and easy. That just sounds like so stress relieving, which is what we need as parents, parents of neurotypical kids as well as neurodiverse. It's just, I know for me, it's a lot, like how many providers I have for each child and the paperwork and the this and the that and the other. And I think, I don't know if you mentioned it now, but I think when we talked before, you said something about paperwork. Does the platform have something to be able to keep all of that millions of sheets of paper?
So part of being an EHR and supporting you with everything you need is to have the documents in place, and if there are forms to fill out, then we have the digitized version. So quite like Google Forms and Jot Forms and Type Forms, we have that in as an internal system to support with all types of forms, and providers can just ask us, hey, I have this PDF or a snapshot of a form that I had on a paper. Can you digitize that? So we do these on behalf of our providers, and it makes it very streamlined, so they can share with clients, an intake, for example, to fill out. And once it's filled, it's going to sit, under the Documents tab for that specific client. And we try to center everything around that specific client. So we go beyond that. So with notes, session notes, and documents, and even like the sessions themselves, think about like when you talk with a parent and they just received a neuropsychological evaluation, and they want to add the neuropsychologist to be part of that, support team and the village.
Right.
We felt like we should bring this to life in literally every single aspect of the product. And when you think about a client and you want to bring on board another provider to the support team, it means that you want to sometimes share notes and documents, but also in a HIPAA, FERPA compliant way, and take care of release of information. So all of that is taken care of kind of like in the back end, and we try to make it kind of like seamless. So you add a contact, for example, the neuropsychologist, now the family gets an invite to approve the release of information, and once it is approved, you can easily share notes and documents with them. So the idea is to make it very, very streamlined and break silos. In our village, there are no silos, and we make sure that communication can flow and knowledge can be shared easily. And
so basically, if a parent has the thing and they have 4 different providers, all the providers will have access to all of the documents from all the other providers, right? Or does the client have to?
Given that there is a release of information in place, there are some technicalities, yes.
Right.
The answer is yes. And I think we are, as far as I know, the only EHR to really think about that this way. And it means that for parents, when they log into the client portal, it's the very first time they can see all their kiddos in one place and all their providers in one place, and make sure that if they need to share anything, it can be shared across with anyone they pick.
Right. That is awesome. Because I'm just thinking about like, okay, I signed on with a new provider. All right, now I need to get them the physical therapist report and the neuropsych and the this and the IEP and the, all the other from everywhere. And now I'm like, where did I put them on the file on the computer? And now I need to upload it. And is it safe? But now, so let's say, okay, I join as a parent, because, I'm both, so as a parent, and I have my parent side. And so I have my provider is already on there, but my physical therapist isn't. So can I bring the physical therapist in, or do they have to go through you to set up their own provider platform?
So you can bring them on board. You can ask them, invite them to join. If they would decide and they want to take on that opportunity to become a provider, and they are in the space and they support neurodivergent individuals, so they want to take on, like, of all the benefits we can provide them, that would be great. But we're not, expecting or demanding them to do so.
That's nice.
They have the options, and again, it's free for providers. So it should be easy for anyone on a professional side that you add to log in, see information, and do everything they need. But if they decide to become like an actual provider on the community, they can easily now take that to the next level.
That's nice to know, because I'm sure parents are like, well, I don't want to make all my providers have to go use this other system. And of course, what's popping into my head now is my husband, who's like, I can't stand all these apps. Everybody has a different app, the school, the Hebrew school, the this, the that, and it's like, oh, look, honey, there's one app and everything's there. And you can join me in knowing everybody and everything, instead of me just saying, hey, honey, you got to do this there,
That's exactly what we heard. And, in many cases, a family, it's true for both sides. You work with one client, but maybe 5 to 10 different platforms to streamline the journey. And that felt nonsense. Like, it should be easy, and things should be in one place and accessible and easy to handle. And when we built the entire platform, we had that in mind. Like, we need to address specific needs. At the very beginning, we wanted to integrate with one of the EHRs, and there are so many, and they are all great. Like, literally everyone doing a really great job. But none of them are really thinking about neurodivergent individuals to the extent that we were hoping for. And that kind of what led us to build this understanding, when we had the understanding of all right, it needs to be different. It needs to be simplified. We're not competing over the amount of features quite like all the others. They have tables to prove you why they have more than the others and why you should pay more for more features. But neurodivergent individuals told us, hey, we don't want more, we want less. Can you simplify? Can you make it easy? Just show me, what do I need to know? Where do I need to click? Just that.
Yep. We don't have time for all that other stuff and to learn all that other stuff, and
Right. And it comes with a different state of mind, different requirements, different needs. And many of the EHRs are trying to serve as many professions as possible. So a dermatologist, a pediatrician, an SLP, others, so many, with very common features. They may have templates for the intake, things that might be different, but at the core of it, a dermatologist, for example, they see their patients, once or twice a year. Most of our providers see their clients once or twice a week. It comes with a different, state of mind, and you need to think about scheduling and note-taking and documents and payments in a different manner. It's not a one-off. It's recurring, and it's a high-frequency one.
Yeah, and it's all right there. It just makes it so much easier. It makes sense. So this has been so awesome. I love that you put your website there on so people watching can see it, WizTherapy.com. And I think you said, if providers or families, they just go to your website, click on, fill out the form, and that's it to get started. Nice and easy, right?
That's the point. Yeah, we try.
And that's the best way to get in touch with you and to get started, right?
That would be great. If they want to reach out to me directly, we have our phone number listed on the website. There's a contact us if they want to reach directly to us and not through the matching algorithm, which is also human monitored. So yes, we should be accessible to all, and we try to make it very easy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this information, because this is something new and different that people don't know about. And so I'm excited to get this out to people to say, hey, look, you can make life easier. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Stress Free IEP. We hope today's conversation gave you new tools, insights, or just a little more peace of mind as you support your neurodivergent child. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone in your village. You can always learn more and connect with me at schefterlaw.com or follow along on social media. Until next time, remember, you do not have to do it all alone.